Well, let's talk about it. So, I'm going to talk about something I wrote a few years back, and it's called Are You Truman? The Opinions of a Libertarian Provocateur. And I'm going to start by explaining that I am socially liberal and I guess fiscally conservative, whatever that means. I think that we should be decent people. Now, I am a liberal. I lean left, but I am more of a small government centrist. Anyway, here we go. Utopia. Imagine the splendor of it. All things exist in a state of perfection. The word itself means nowhere. Utopia does not exist and cannot exist. It is nowhere. Thomas More writes of Utopia and first publishes it in the year 1516, 500 years ago exactly. He writes of an island where the leaders are elected. It is a community where there is no private property. All property in Utopia is communal. Men and women perform the same tasks, allotted to them by their abilities without regard to gender. Criminals are enslaved to perform community service by force. Slaves are restrained in shackles of gold. In order to maintain the order in Utopia, the residents are all of like mind. Those who dissent are relegated to the mainland. In 1998, The Truman Show is released. A child at birth, placed under the supervision and guardianship of a corporation. The child is then made a central figure in the ultimate reality show about his life, The Truman Show. He has what his guardians might say is an idyllic life. He has a good job, a beautiful wife, close friends, pleasant neighbors, and a community that wants for little to nothing of consequence. Truman lives in Utopia, but it is only Utopia for those who are the controllers. Truman is not happy. Truman is unfulfilled. Truman is desperate for another life. He does not understand his situation, but Truman senses that his life is not his own. He cannot comprehend his circumstances, but he understands that something is wrong. What does any of this have to do with the world which we live now? Everything and nothing at all. For generations, assaults on words are not only pervasive, they are encouraged. My parents raised me well. I adore them. I love them. I thank them. I am forever indebted to them. My parents are the best parents any child could ever hope to have. When I was maybe 8 years old, I used the word dildo to describe something to my mother. She was less than thrilled. When Dad arrived home, he taught me that there were certain words that were bad. He taught me that I should never use them. As much as I love my parents, that perspective is wrong. Words are never bad. Imagine a world without them. Imagine a world without effective communication. Sarah Palin has been vocal in her cries for the word retard and all of its forms to be removed from our common vocabulary. George Carlin is famous for many reasons, and one of his most famous comedy routines, is known as the 7 words you cannot say on television. Those words are shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits. They are just words. They are not bad. They are words. If you use them, it does not make you a bad person. It does not make you evil. It does not make you less deserving than someone else. There is an assault on the Second Amendment on this country. That this is occurring is not debatable. There are points to be made on both sides. I happen to believe that the Second Amendment is necessary for the people to maintain control over the government. But that is me. What is little discussed is the assault on the First Amendment. Children are forced in schools to use only politically correct words in their communication. Otherwise, they are punished. They are taught that some words are bad. They are taught that some words are hurtful. They are taught that some words are pejorative in nature and should not be used. This is political correctness. But what is political correctness? It is the adherence to a political doctrine. If one accepts politically correct language, one accepts control of free speech by a political doctrine. The argument for political correctness is promulgated in part using the empathy of the audience. Can you not understand how this word can hurt this person? It is asked. Empathy of the listener promotes submission. And when it does not work, punishment. This is a common tactic of many political ideologies. In this case, the old school progressives in this country, they require adherence. They require everyone to be in lockstep. Dissent is not tolerated. If one violates one of their rules, one is punished. One is labeled. One is ostracized. The old school progressives of America grew up with a playbook. It is called Rules for Radicals. Its author, Saul Alinsky, is a brilliant man who understands the art of manipulation. The most interesting fact about Alinsky for me is that he is no communist. He is no progressive. He is an anti-establishment individualist. With all of his organizing skills and accomplishments, he avoids being associated with lockstep politics. That is the very thing against which he fights. And his ideas are ruthlessly effective. Rule number 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. it also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concessions. Rule 13. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. So Donald Trump is crass. He speaks without political correctness. He often speaks without regard for offending someone. Here is a partial list of labels given to Trump by the media and their definitions based on Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary. Racist. One who believes that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Can anyone offer proof that President Trump believes race is the primary determinant of human traits? The manner by which he runs his business tells a much different narrative. The 1973 DOJ case against Donald Trump is as close as you can cite, and there was no result that indicate any truth to the assertion of racial bias. The evidence demonstrates a prejudice regarding ability to pay rent by a landlord. The issue was green, not black. A xenophobe. One unduly fearful of what foreign and especially of one unduly fearful of what is foreign, and especially of people of foreign origin. Is there an intellectually honest person, knowledgeable about Islam, who can effectively argue that there does not exist a significant portion of the Islamic community that is radicalized or holds views that are antithetical to individual freedom? If you are gay in much of the Islamic world, you are subject to be killed. It is considered an obligation to perform the murder of homosexual. The idea that one might be unduly fearful of a religion prone to contain violent elements and fundamental principles that contradict the very essence of freedom upon which this country is based is not indicative of a phobia. It is indicative of pragmatism and intellectual honesty. And let's be clear, I am agnostic, but I hold dear the right to practice one's own system of religious beliefs. But one cannot exercise any right in a way that interferes with the free exercise of rights by others. Period. Ergo, if one holds to a system of beliefs that calls for the denial of rights to others, one has no right to exercise that system of beliefs in this country, nor should they ever. Sexist. One who is prejudiced against or discriminates based on sex, especially discrimination against women. There is a legitimate case to be made for Trump being sexist to a degree. There is not a legitimate case to be made that Trump is a sexist in his professional life. His professional life is about green. His history shows that he does not care even a little bit about the person or persons whom he hires, as long as they can help his goal of being profitable. Was not the argument made by supporters of Bill Clinton that what he did in his personal life and is his business and that support for him is based on what he does in his professional life. Misogynist, one who hates women. The premise that Trump hates women is laughable. That he can be condescending to women is true. I have been in his presence in the 1980s on more than a couple of occasions. He can be condescending. My own observations do not indicate his condescension was limited to or even influenced by gender, race, or religion. I saw it based on his regard for one's work product. In my presence, he was an equal opportunity critic of substandard work product. If you use words that offend someone, collectively, we are going to ridicule you, label you, and demean you. Welcome to utopia. If you dissent, you're removed from the island. And this is from the press. The press, that paragon of virtue protected by the First Amendment as watchdogs of the government, obliterating any sense of impartiality and ascending to the pinnacle of hypocrisy. How dare he use words that are offensive? He is such a... insert offensive descriptors here. The very rules by which they want society to adhere seem not to be self-applied. Perhaps they feel that their use of atypical verbiage precludes their assaults from being legitimately critiqued. Perhaps they believe this shields them from the ism words, the ist words, and the phobe words. Or perhaps not. Those of you who wish to curtail free speech so as not to offend others, I have a label for you. Those of you who believe that someone who uses language that is crass deserves a ridicule, I have a label for you. Those of you who believe that you have a right to exist in a trigger-free world so that your own ignorance can flourish, I have a label for you. Those of you who wish to enforce upon another person your own sense of morals, I have a label for you. But I digress. This is the fallacy of utopia. It does not exist. But they try. Boy, do they try. Political correctness. This cleansing of thought and speech is merely an extension of eugenics. What is eugenics? It is a cleansing of genetics to create a superior race. Also a progressive idea that fueled Nazi Germany's efforts to murder the Jewish population by the millions. If you do not belong, they get rid of you. Utopia. So here is Truman, living his life under almost complete control of his overlords. He has everything one might want, does he not? Is this not how we measure the quality of one's life? But his own internal misery eats at him. Life is not about what one wants. Life is not about what makes one comfortable. Life is not about what one has. Life is about being you. No one else can decide what that is, nor what it is not. No one should ever decide how your life manifests itself. Your life is uniquely you, and you are the only one given the moral authority to guide it. This is freedom. This is the hunger driving Truman. Eleutherophobes, old school progressive, who wish to determine what we can say and drink and think. Eleutherophobes, academia elites who believe themselves superior to the commoner. Eleutherophobes, the people who stole the primary from Bernie. Eleutherophobes, people who believe that using words that offend disqualifies you from being president or anything else. Eleutherophobes, people who support corruption or systems of corruption. Eleutherophobes, the partisan media. I support your right to be eleutherophobic, because that is what a libertarian does and is. But I also have the right to say this. Make no mistake about it. I mean every syllable of it. Fuck you, eleutherophobes, and have a great day.